So narcissists do invade your psychic system. I look at this like we all have a kingdom plot, and um, narcissists have a tendency to come into our kingdom plot in our own psyche, our healing space in the grid, our position in three-dimensional reality and ultimate reality. Narcissists tend to come into our psychic land, real estate, whatever you want to call it, and take up shop. And they'll do what they want with that land, right? It's not that different than what people do to the trees today. They will see a plot, say, hey, how can I use this plot? I don't care about the well being of this plot. I want to use it for what I can gain from it. So if a client ever gets on my schedule with true narcissism, the sensation that I have by the end of the call is that the entire time there's a fast-paced, hurried thing going on where it's as if I had to put words to it, it would be, Stacy, get out of my way. I'm bringing my fighter jet into your territory psychically, and I'm going to mine what I can. And we only have an hour, so you gotta shut your mouth, get out of my way so we can do it. And I'm gonna take what I can from your internal territory and bring it back to mine. So if you could see the nullification of the person involved there, right? Like narcissists will communicate with you, not for you, but through you to get to something else that they want. And sometimes you might say, I have nothing that this person wants, but the truth is most narcissists, I would say, are in a better position in the external world, given that they're driven to be validated in the external world, and they're driven to maintain and seek power and control in the external world. So their drive to create resources is very vast. And somebody who already has internal resources, who doesn't need that thing from the external, it can look like a beaming light to a narcissist, that they're like, hey, you have something that I want and it's not fair because I have everything else, but that one thing, and that one thing that I'm missing isn't fair that you have it, so I'm going to take it from you. And this is a psychic phenomenon, right? So being on the receiving end of that would be very confusing if I didn't know more at this point in my life, right? Like I would be like, wait, what's going on? I'm trying to help, but like you're pushing me away. You're not letting me help. Blah blah blah. What's going on? And the truth is, now I can say, you don't get to come on my territory. Even if you pay me, you don't have access to that part because you're demanding it, right? So it's very, you could say, oh, and if you have a narcissistic ex who you didn't really have that many resources, but you had a kid with them, and then you leave that person and you have no choice but to communicate with this person, it'll be shocking for you because again, you'll realize that they don't really care about your child that you're leaving them with. They will trophy that child, or that they'll go through you to get to something that they want, and that child might very well hold up their image, right? While you do all of the work to actually make that person a person. So you can look at it and go, oh, well, I'm confused because I didn't have any resources when I met this narcissist, and maybe this narcissist even saved me somehow with external resources. But that's also how they trap you, right? So I want you to just primarily understand that the confusion that you can feel from a narcissistic person in relationship to them is this sense of bypassing your personhood. It is that sense of get out of my way because you have something I want, and they might not even know what it is, but they're determined to get it, right? So when that is happening, and it can be very subtle. Narcissists can be very charming. So I want to also position this, like if you've ever been in a position where your children were groomed and you later were aware that you were groomed to groom your children and didn't know that either of you were being groomed, and you thought that that person was actually a good person, and then you later realize like, oh, they wanted this horrible end result for somebody that I love, and that's why they came through me to get it and essentially groomed me to believe in them. So they can keep a real nice face. A narcissist will be a chameleon for as long as they can to get the end result. And then if they don't get it, That's when the bait and switch happens, right? That's when all of a sudden it's whiplash. Like, what, you don't trust me? What, you're not giving this to me? You're not doing this thing I've been working on you for years. And now all of a sudden you're going to act like you have a boundary, right? So that's when the bait and switch will happen, because narcissists are master groomers. They will massage the image that they want you to believe in them, and then they will entrap you in the shared fantasy. And if you do not uphold that illusion, so here's the other thing I said to somebody the other day. We are all like, I love A Course in Miracles because it really helps me to get grounded, but also this awareness that, like, throughout many stages of development, we all have illusions that uphold us, right? And what I mean by this is, like, the other day I was working with somebody, and she is a very generous person. This is very true, right? And I've definitely had this illusion, right? I'm the most generous person in the world. That's true, but I've also been the most generous person in the world with nothing to give, right? So when people then demand something from me, I'm not generous anymore. And that creates a cognitive dissonance, because I have this illusion that isn't meeting the reality. My behavior isn't matching my psychology. And those are great things to look at, right? Because then it's like, oh, okay, well, now I know myself a little more in the three-dimensional reality. Like, I'm actually not the most generous person in the world. And that's maybe good and fair, because it's more in position with reality. Like, to always be this open doormat is just not exactly a human being, right? So we all are upheld by illusions, and not all of those illusions are narcissistic. But narcissists demand that you be the crutch to their illusions. So they will be like, I can't walk without you. I can't walk. Meanwhile, you become a crutch under them. You're not walking at all on your own. You just have this weight of, like, having to hold them up. Meanwhile, they're like, I'm already up top. I don't need you for anything, and you need me for everything. And you're literally a wooden crutch under them. And I think a lot of times if you are raised by a narcissist, you will feel like other people should come in and be those crutches for you. Whether you are a narcissist about it or not, you'll just be like, I don't even know how to walk on my own. Like, I need crutches. And you will be rendered to disabled in a psychic way. And then you'll look for crutches in the external world, like the narcissist did, because you've never been able to validate your internal world, right? And you maybe didn't have parents that would validate, or even had a vast internal emotional landscape. So that if you do not uphold the illusions that the narcissist wants you to say that they are, you will be made to feel delusional about your witnessing truth in reality. And if you don't have your own personal sense of awareness of what reality is, and you're like, me, I can see so many perspectives, and I can see how everybody would think that they were true from their position, right? But that doesn't mean anymore I'm willing to be derailed for somebody else's position just because I can see where they're coming from. It doesn't mean it has to be true. I can see where they're coming from, even if it's upheld by an illusion. And that's where it's like, I have to help people get on the ground, but also the people who've been thrown into the gutter, I have to help them get on the ground, right? Because there's these two dualities of, like, the person who thinks they're up here and everybody has to come meet them, and I can only hang out with special people who are geniuses, and everybody who is like me is awesome, everybody who's not sucks. And then there's the other person who's already been thrown in the ditch of life and think they suck, or like they as a person sucks, they're never going to be able to get out, nobody cares about them. Either way, they're delusions of insecurity or grandeur, right? And getting on the ground with reality is a huge feat to somebody who's been on that seesaw their whole life because they've been in relationship to a narcissist. So yes, narcissists will psychically invade you. I cannot understand how this happens or why. If, like, I work with people who say their parents were not narcissistic, and then they fall for a narcissist, and they kind of, they have a sense of self to go back to, which is interesting, but I'm not sure why the neural net is available for invasion in some people, like empaths, but not others. Like, if my man dealt with a narcissist, it wouldn't even get past here for him. Where me, it would get in the back of my head, and it would be like real estate that I'm offering this person, right? Not so much anymore. But my point is, I'm not under, I don't know why we have neural nets that allow for that invasion. Narcissists will come to me, be like, how do I not be a narcissist, right? Because they know it's not working for them anymore. So, but that doesn't mean, and this is the thing I've had to learn, that behavioral change is not true psychological change. Behavioral change you might help somebody become a better narcissist, right? Because they can present better to the world, but really their psychology is still intending on using the people that they're presenting well to, right? So that's where it gets confusing, the cognitive dissonance of, wait, this person's being really nice to me, but also I feel like they're like invading me and I'm confused. Like, what's going on here? Because they're smiling, they're acting interested in me, but also they're kind of seeing through me, and I'm not sure why we're even having this conversation, and seeing through me in a way that like I'm not even there, not like, oh, I see you in there, right? Like I see who you are. They're seeing through you to what they think they can get from you. And narcissists will present very well. They'll say the right thing and then follow up with a question of like, okay, well, I've said the right thing now, so like let me get to what I really want from you, right? So they will infiltrate your mind. They will be left there in your mind because they have cultivated seeds. This is the way I look at it. They have cultivated seeds in maybe many of your plots in your interior landscape, or maybe just one, and they've raped it and they're sitting there in a chair, like smoking cigs, like, get up and do this, bitch. I want you to fucking do what I want you to do, right? And they're still sitting there in your head. And every time you lay down, you're like, oh my God, I gotta get up. Like, they're gonna come after me. They're telling me what to do. And it's all in here. You're not even with them anymore. Right? That, and we could call this the introject, but it is an invasion. And if we think about, if we don't know that we've been invaded, and we just look at it like, oh, this person in the external world is kind of like not nice, and I should stay separated from them, and they're an asshole. But you just think like, oh, they just did this something to me that I can't understand. Well, what they did to you was invade you. And then they almost energetically planted their seed in you. And that seed is a hook that very easily could make, like, they believe you'll always come back. Once they've planted that seed, they're too egotistical to think that you've actually really gone, right? So they will come looking for that seed that they planted in you and still feel entitled to it 10 years later. And you, if you don't pull that seed or that entire forest out of your psyche, will very likely fall into the hoovering when they come back and go, hey, I have that seed in you that, like, obviously I'm here to redeem the fruits from the trees that I put in you that really aren't your interior design. It's a non-native species that has been implanted in you, and that's why you don't feel like yourself after you've dealt with a narcissist on a true emotional level, right? You don't feel like yourself because you're not only yourself anymore. You're also this overlay of some, I don't want to say demonic, but you're this overlay of, like, when you have to learn how to play that game, it's very confusing then to know who you have to play that game with and who not, right? Like, there's a huge element of complex PTSD to narcissism. And when you come out of that, that's why the other day I did this test that one of my clients sent me. It was like the disc test for the book Surrounded by Idiots. And it said that I'm super yellow, super green, and then blue and a little bit of red. And the thing about that is that might be true psychologically, that might be true in the way that I come across and behave, but what's even more true is cognitively, I would be more blue because I have PTSD. So as much as it might be my true North Star to be this kind of person, I don't actually feel like a yellow dominant. I actually feel more like a green blue dominant. And the truth is, when I was a kid, I was like optimistic, like I love everybody. And still, I'm still like that, but I don't trust people the same way. And I think that's good for me. So I'm a little bit more blue. I'm a little bit more skeptical. I'm a little bit more like, well, give me the facts before I believe anything you say, right? So when you are left rendered to no longer being able to be yourself because you've been invaded psychically by a narcissist, you might show up, you might present as like yellow to the world, or like feel like you are a blue when really the world's seeing you as yellow. So that's where the mismatch doesn't, that's where the mismatch comes in of your insides don't match your outsides, right? Because you're like, oh, like people see me as maybe this thing, but really on the inside, I'm like wilting in here. And it might be you have a great life. You have no, it's not fair for you to complain except you're involved with a narcissist. And that will deteriorate your mental space, and you will feel guilty for feeling bad about your life because you might have a great life and you're being invaded by somebody who is trying to exploit your great life or take advantage of your great life, and then you will self-exploit to uphold their illusion so that they don't punish you, which they will do if you do not surrender to their desired fantasy of themselves. They will punish you. That is part of the invasion. The invasion isn't just like, I'm going to come in and make it cozy for you. It's, I'm going to come in and make it cozy for you, and then I'm going to do whatever I want with you once I know that you've allowed me in, right? So, long story short, you might not know until after the fact how truly invaded you are. You might not know how strong you are even until you actually put down what you're carrying. But you can't put down what you're carrying when you're carrying a narcissist, because most likely they have more resources than you. Most likely they are in a position of power to make you look like a psycho. You can't really put them down, because if you drop them, something you then the crutch doesn't have any use, right? This has been my biggest thing in my adult life. If I'm not a crutch, what is my purpose? Like, I'm always the one kind of upholding people, and now I'm like, yo, I don't want to hold you, bro. I want to hug you chest to chest on the ground. And my old self was really identified with like, okay, I have to hold people up because people are fragile. And I want to make sure that I'm not stepping on any stuff, like doing anything wrong. Now I don't do that anymore, right? I don't want my position to always be, I have to hold people up or I have to dig them out of the grave. So I used to do that from like, I'm gonna climb up your ladder and get you, and I'm gonna dig down in that hole and get you. And now I'm like, I'm gonna sit right here on the ground. I'm gonna tell you step by step how to get down from that ladder. And I'm gonna stay right here and I'll pull you up by your hand and I'll tell you where the things are to get up in this from this little well you got yourself buried in right now. But I cannot meet you in the illusion that you do not have the strength, that I cannot meet you in the illusion that the narcissist is more powerful than you, either, right? So we are all upheld or downheld, strangely, by our own illusions. And that's why the work is necessary, because you can see what's the illusion versus what's the truth about you. And it's good to know about yourself. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You should know your strengths and weaknesses, and you should honor them. You should say, oh, this is who I am. And this is my capacity. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. I have flaws. I'm human. You have flaws. You're human. Narcissists don't like that. And narcissists won't let you be that. You will be punished over and over again if you are human, the narcissist, right? And that's the invasion where you're like, wait, oh my God, I have to have this pure spiritual ego, right? I have to be pure. And even now, I have negative thoughts and I feel guilt and I walk away like, oh my God, people know what I think, right? And this idea that like, if I'm not pure on the inside, where all of my things feel very clean, my cognitions, my psychology, my body, then I'm like, what's wrong, right? I have to be this pure being. The truth is, I have negative thoughts. The truth is, I don't like some people. The truth is, I am hurt by people I wish I could forgive, but I can't. The truth is, wanting something is not the same thing as wanting to want something, right? There's a huge gap there in wanting to want something. And if you don't bridge that awareness of like, I want to want this thing, but I really don't want this thing, the truth is, you don't want that thing, right? And knowing that about yourself is really good. So when you are with a narcissist, it makes you not want to know the negative parts of yourself, because those are the parts that were always emphasized with a narcissist. And this is part of the invasion and infiltration. It's like they want to, and maybe it's even more so that they wrap like poisonous vines around your own seeds, right? Like, I don't know, but the invasion is the desire to make you weaker so that they can be stronger. And if you do not uphold their strength, They will kick you when you are down 100% of the time. And my friends used to say, I don't know why it still shocks you. I don't know why this still confuses you. This has been the way it is for 20 years. Oh my God, right? You still can't believe it when you're in it. And you still can't even believe it when you're out of it. It's unbelievable. And we have to believe it. And that's where I've come to over this last year is like, whoa, dude, as much as I can say these things on a cognitive level, the truth is, I have to believe the words coming out of my mouth in my cellular body because I'm still almost bypassing the truth of what it does on a cellular level, not just a cognitive level. But the truth is, a narcissist will invade your psyche and they will elicit you to react from your nervous system. And your nervous system becomes addicted to that reaction, and they become addicted to your reaction. And again, this is the danger with narcissists. If you are really under the control of a narcissist and you don't react, you're going to be punished. If you don't react, good or bad, either way. But when you're not in the total orbit of a narcissist, if you don't react, that's your medicine, right? Because they want to be powerful. They want to know they can make you respond and react. And they're the best at making that happen and making you look like a psycho. So then you will be left not trusting people and then be like, oh my God, were they right? Like, am I a psycho? Like, oh, I can't get this right. They've done that to you. That is a ploy, a systematic design to make you hooked so that they can always come back to that land that they already built a seed in, put a seed in, and say, well, yo, you have something in mind. And then you'll be like, oh shit, I do have something that there's like, and I want to get rid of it, but I don't know how. So you want them to come back so you can give it to them, but then they come back and they just take more, right? And you think, okay, we're gonna have this like restitution. We're gonna be like doing this thing. I can give them back their seeds that they planted in me. No, that's not the case, right? And you could say, well, how do I get rid of the seeds? Well, ultimately, I think that the best way to do this is not to go into the place in your psyche where the narcissist has invaded your land and is demanding that you do all these things for it. You have other plots in your interior world that if you harvest, if you forage, if you really cultivate, will grow into that land and ideally anything that doesn't serve you in that plot, including the narcissist sitting, smoking cigarettes, demanding that you do the shit that they want you to do, um, eventually it will become your garden, your forest, and your seeds then will kind of, everything that they've planted in you ideally is biodegrading as your new forest grows. But I don't think it's necessarily the best thing to go into that place right away and go, okay, well, because it gives them more power. Right? Like to even be like, okay, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to see what this narcissist is, and I'm going to argue with this and I'm going to plant no, you're not. Because again, that's your hyper focus is taking up too much space and giving them too much power again, right? So the work, and it's so hard because you're so invested in like figuring out their mind when you're in a relationship with a narcissist. But then when you get to go figure out your mind, you immediately run to that plot where the narcissist is, and you're like, hey, I got to get this person out of here. No, you have to explore all of the parts that are still left because there are parts of you that never gave up. There are parts of you that are crying somewhere in a corner that have never given up. They still believe. And then there's another part of you that's like, oh, I don't believe anything. It's never going to get better than this, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is you have parts that are waiting for you to come get them. And you also have gardens that are in full bloom, but you can't see it when you're always hyper focused and hyper vigilant about what the narcissist is doing in your interior world. So the strengthening, because again, it's like when you go into that immediate plot with a narcissist, you are almost like narcissists will never meet you on the ground. That's what I really want you to understand. They're always going to go through you to get something that they want. So when you go to that place in your interior world, you won't be meeting a narcissist on the ground. You'll be meeting a ghost of them that still dominates and haunts you. And you will give it power and make it very real. And I know it's very real. And I know it feels powerful for you. But to go to your haunted places and give it power. Any ghost needs a human in form to take the energy from, right? So every time we enter that situation, in person or even in our psyche, we feel like a haunted house, right? But there's other rooms, and we just don't, it's not that we don't go into that room eventually, but you have to strengthen the awareness of all of the other interior rooms that are actually you, not the narcissist, right? So it can be very confusing because a narcissist, like, and again, you might say, well, they didn't really do that to me. And oh, look, they like changed. They're like this person with this partner and this person with this partner. That is what a narcissist does. They are chameleons who will change their entire personality until they know that they've invaded. And then that's where the devalue discard comes in. They no longer need you. There's going to be somebody else with a different plot that's going to be more interesting than yours because you already lost their game. So when you are in a narcissistic relationship for a very long time, an extended period of time, you have no choice but to learn the game and be better at the game than the narcissist. And that will make you feel like a narcissist. But the truth is, you can't survive a narcissist without knowing how to play that game. And then eventually you're gonna be like, I just don't want to play that game. And I won't play that game. That's not my game. That's your game. And it's never gonna let you win, actually. Like, because again, most narcissists have a lot of like probably more external resources than internal resources, or they are using you to get that, right? They will go from woman to woman with money. They, and I'm not saying this is, 50-50 men, women, narcissists, but they'll go to the next person to get money, right? So they don't see people, they see opportunities. So that's where that like, oh, I only have an hour. Get out of my way, Stacy. You're giving me an opportunity to siphon some energy from you. And if you don't let me, I'm going to punish you, right? So they will go through you and say the appropriate thing to you to bypass most of the time to get to that part where then they say the inappropriate thing. And then that's where you're confused. Like, wait, you just said the appropriate thing. Now you're saying the inappropriate thing, but you don't realize they said the appropriate thing because they're trying to go through you, not be here for you. And they're trying to go through you to get to something else that you have. Maybe it's your child. Maybe it's your image. Maybe it's your qualities. Whatever it is, they want to go through you. They do not want to be for you. And that can be shocking because they're very good at acting like they're for you. And then you will realize that they've invaded you just to do that thing. And now you're kind of stuck with them in the middle of yourself instead of yourself in the middle of yourself. So, my best asset to somebody like you, if that's you, is helping you get in position and get into a comfortable chair in the middle of yourself. Because it is very true that it's very likely that the narcissist will invade you and has invaded you. And this will confuse the shit out of you. And you'll think, I should be over this by now. But again, that's a narcissist talking, right? The narcissist is the one that would be like, you should be over this. What? Nothing. I'm better. Right? You shouldn't be over something that was traumatizing for you if you're not over something that was traumatizing for you. You can't rush reality. That's what a narcissist does. And the irony is they're not rushing reality, they're rushing their fantasy. And then they'll shatter you if you and make you feel delusional if you don't run up to meet their fantasy and say, oh, yes, this is real. This is really who you are, right? So there's my take. They will literally invade you. You're not insane, okay? It's a real thing. And I see it, and I know it, and I've lived it, and I've unlived it. And I will probably continue to live and unlive it every single day for the rest of my life, as will you. So I hope this is helpful. Bye.